This is In-Ear Insights, the Trust Insights podcast. In this week's In-Ear Insights, Katie is off this week, so we have John here as our special guest. For Marketing Over Coffee listeners, this will seem like a lot of deja vu. This week, we want to talk about some stuff that we've been seeing. So we've been running a lot of ads, probably the last 60 days or so, from things like the Data Science 101 course, things like that, the book launch, etc. And John, you had noticed in some of the ads that you were running that there was an awful lot of like bogus and spammy form fills, but not like automated. It was clearly a human had to have done to have beaten the captures and stuff. So what's going on? Why are we suddenly seeing this rash of really crappy people just filling in random stuff on forms?
Yeah, it's interesting that this was right at the core of a bunch of stuff that has happened in the past couple of years. And it even goes around the whole fake news thing, which is insane. So we were running these ads and then we flipped them onto the display network. And so people get that straight. You have your just stuff that's in network. So when somebody searches for a term on the side in Google, your ad comes up over there and that's fine. And what had happened to us that we see with a lot of people is you run those ads and you run out of inventory to buy. You say, I'm willing to spend $100 a month on these 4 terms, something really focused, and you only spend like $20 or $15, and you just can't get any more out of it. And so eventually you hit a point where Google keeps bugging you, or if your bigger account manager bugs you and says, hey, turn on the ad network. So now your ads are actually showing up on other websites. They're not just for Google ads. They're not just showing up on Google. They're showing up on all these different, trailheadmagazine.com and fasterskier.com or whatever stuff that's related, but it just shows up all over the place. So we flipped the switch on that and we started to see all these spammy form fills come in. And it was really bizarre in that, you can kind of tell the bot ones where, you get 45 form fills in 3 seconds, at 2 a.m. or whatever. But these were individual people that were actually, there was some work being done to fill these out. And it took some digging to figure out what the heck the story is. But it's still, again, as I mentioned to start with, it goes back to fake news. The whole idea with this is there's sweatshops creating fake accounts and fake form fills for you, filling out the forms. And then ultimately that gets them into the retargeting loop so that now when they go to, super spammy site hosting googleads.com and they, over on their side, visit that site, your ad shows up again over on that content site. And so they're running AdWords over there. So they actually get paid on that ad showing up on that other site. So they've created this whole network. And so it's weird.
Wait. So the spammer goes to your site, fills out a form, or do they just go to your site in general just to get cookied?
They need to just go to get cookied, and that I'm not too clear about. I don't know if they go and while they're there they fill out the form, or if, and this part of it may be automated. They may have this account run and hit hundreds of sites and then just see what ads come back. It's all pretty gray and sketchy, but
okay. So maybe a bot does that with a profile.
Does the first touch, right?
And then it goes, and so then the spammer goes to their spammy website that has the AdSense ads on it, and they click on that ad to go back to your site to fill out the form.
Oh, right, yeah, because of the form fill, yeah, right. So that could be how.
And so the spammy site gets the credit for the conversion and gets paid.
Yeah, they get, because that's ultimately, this is all part of these fake news things too, where they're just putting all kinds of random crap on Facebook and all this stuff because it generates traffic, and so
that makes total sense, because CPA ads wouldn't fire until you filled out the form, you took the action, but they pay better.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know too, maybe getting the acquisition would be bigger. It would pay them better on their side too. So it's got to be that. And so how I had dug into this is that the form fills are real people. Like they're real email addresses of people who have done stuff. But then when I would try and follow up with these people, they were like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never been to your website. I haven't done any of your thing.
Oh, so the spammers are hijacking of people's identities.
There's identity theft in there too. Yeah, right. Because these are real. They somehow go out and get email addresses that are active. And so that's the thing, so if we had on our form fill that we were doing one of those automated pings to see if the email was live, the emails are real. So okay. Just another.
It's like turning into an FBI investigation. So they go to the site, they fill out the form, and then we get a junk lead. So really the way to shut that down then, if you wanted to keep running display ads, would be to stop that junk traffic, that first bot touch, because if you can block that, then there's no cookie for them to fire on. Their efforts are wasted. We saw in February, and I would encourage everybody, go, if you're running ads, go to your Google Analytics account and look for like big 1 or 2 day spikes in traffic, but look specifically for, you'll have to go to behavior, site content, and look for traffic that goes to a page that has no title. Assuming all of your pages on your site have titles, one of the identifiers of the spammy traffic, because we noticed this huge traffic spike in February for like 2 days, but it was all to a page that didn't exist, that had no title. They were essentially spamming the site with crap referral traffic, but to a URL that wasn't there, that had no title. And so we were able to put a filter in saying, just deny traffic to a page that has no title. And we were able to shut it down somewhat that way.
Yeah, that's the other one with that, is to manage it on the ad network side. You can go in with your ads and be like, okay, I don't want to show up on these sites here. And that one's kind of tough because, Google has no real incentive to encourage you to do that, right? Because you're going to be lowering your impressions and your quality will go up, but the amount you're going to spend per month is going to go down. And so, yeah, I never went down that rat hole that far. For us, it was just like, oh, forget it. Let's just turn off the ad network and we can, find more organic stuff to do, or other channels.
Right.
But
well, I guess then the thing that would make sense to do there would be, if you know what your keyword is, let's say it's a data science course or whatever, go into a tool like Ahrefs or something and look for the top ranking pages in there, and then use those as your placements in Google Ads. Say, I only want to appear on KDnuggets.com, and if they're in the network, then they'll show up. If they're not, say, I don't know what site you're talking about, but then you could, I guess, hand curate a list of, these are the placements where we know these are legit sites, so we don't mind them getting paid if our ads show there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I never thought of it. That's really, do it from a whitelisting perspective rather than blacklisting, rather trying to fight back the whole world. And that would make it very much like the organic stuff. Like, you're just kind of slowly adding stuff, because you could tier those in too. You could do even one a week to see which ones are good and not good. And hopefully with those are all quality sites. So they'll just be ones where you don't get anything. You don't have to shut them off, but you're not going to worry, as opposed to I guess it's much easier to go look in a new little corner, as opposed to kind of like turning on the floodgates and having to, beat back the rotten stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, I run into this with my younger kids' Kindle web browser. They're like, do you want to blacklist some sites? Do you want to whitelist some sites? How do you want to do it? And it's so much easier to say, these are the sites you can go to, as opposed to say, how do I anticipate every possible porn site on the internet? It's like, nope. You could go to the BBC, Disney, and like these 5 other sites, and that's it.
Yeah, right. And or even just to put the burden back on them, make them come back to you and be like, hey, can I visit, Minecraft.com or whatever? And
yep.
Yeah, if you leave any door open, it seems like it's just a matter of time before somebody comes to steal stuff from you.
Exactly. So you have the place. Actually, that would really work well. The placements, the whitelisting placements too, because you then know, like, if you go into your Google Analytics and you look at your referral traffic and you see what sites are already sending you traffic, you can say, like, yeah, let's show some ads of these sites that are already sending us traffic, because we know then that their audience, is clearly right enough for us that they're already visiting us. And so we can say, okay, yeah, now let's throw a few bucks their way, because if they're running AdSense ads on their site, then you sending ad traffic to that site will Google sending ad traffic will pay them. So it actually kind of helps support them too.
Yeah, and I really like that, because a lot of your traffic could be coming from a specific branch of the site where somebody's like looking for one piece of content, whereas if you ran the ads, now that you'd have run of site, they'd be all over the place. So hopefully you'd be going further with that and be able to get more stuff to show up. And interesting too, so mentioning Ahrefs too, that would be another thing too. Take those sites that you've got, throw those in Ahrefs, and find out who are the competitors and similar sites. So maybe you could find some new places to work with or run with there too.
Oh, okay. So you go to Ahrefs, put like KDnuggets.com, and it would spit out like toward datascience.com would be a competitor site. But so I think if the two towards data science is slightly larger, but you could then say, okay, I want to show, so you're kind of hunting the competitors of the sites that are already referring you traffic.
Yeah, just find similar stuff. Again, you probably are going to want to branch out as fast as you can and as quickly as you can, cover as much ground. It'd be interesting to see too how much they really compete too. You may find that certain sites are, well, this one's data science, but this community over here is data science and our studio. And that's why we're getting everybody, because they're really all our studio people, not just generic data science, folks or whatever like that.
That makes sense. Actually, if you did the whitelisting placement, it'd be a lot more work for you or your ad agency. But if you did whitelisting placements, you could then tag each of the placements, each of the sites separately and say, like, I want to see just traffic from Towards Data Science, from our just, Towards Data Science ads, and see if that ad traffic outperforms, say, Katie Nuggets. Then you can say, okay, I'm going to move more of my ad budget over to the site that's working even better.
Yeah. To run with. Now, how do you think, it seems like, when we see this, is like B2C companies just reach this point where they just don't care. They just want the pure impressions. And so they open it up to the network, and just, the massive traffic and spam is just a cost of getting in there. Is that really all that goes into that? It's just, they are all about the tonnage.
I think it's probably tonnage. I would also guess it is about the cookies. Just get as many cookies onto as many devices as possible, which is a little trickier now because obviously there's more restrictions on what you can track. Safari, Firefox, and a few other browsers will block third-party cookies, so it can make things more challenging. But yeah, I think for B2C, it's also just a question of manpower. It's like, do we want to try and anticipate the 500,000 websites our consumers probably visit all the time, or do you just want to say, like, we don't want to be on hate speech sites and stuff, and they apply some basic blacklists? And even then, like, we've got plenty of examples of companies like, oh, I didn't know our ad was running on that site.
Oh yeah. That's the whole brand protection, vertical. There's like a whole cottage industry of that, making sure you're staying off the places that you shouldn't be and are causing other problems for you content wise. Yeah, that's a whole nother bag of spiders to open up.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because then it also brings it, like, for nonprofits. Like, if you have a nonprofit that has like a big publication site, gets a million or so visitors or so, they could make some bucks on that if they did some partnering with some of the bigger companies. Like, hey, can you agree to do a placement, a whitelist placement in your ads manager for our publication? They could indirectly earn some money that way without the company having to directly just shovel money to the nonprofit, because they would get something in exchange. They get the traffic.
Yeah, right. And they don't have to manage it too. Like, you build it once and then that's it. It just runs over there. They don't have to, because that's just doing ongoing maintenance on this stuff will just kill you. And that kind of answered my own question with that. All in is to get for somebody to manage that.
Okay. What about the leads, the lead data itself, all that crap data that is now flooding your marketing automation software?
Yeah, we're at a point where that we're not as worried about scale. I mean, those could just get tagged as unqualified and get flushed. And then with the source code of the ad campaign, we can pull them at any time. So you pretty much just have to come up with a procedure of, like, okay, once a year or every other year, if they've come in and there's never been any traffic or any activity, we just flush and delete those. But yeah, that's a good question. Especially the weird one with that is, with so many of the leads that come in like that, usually it's like, okay, well, this lead got this one white paper, but it's still a legitimate lead. Like, the email is still good. Whereas with these, we're pretty sure that the email addresses are garbage, that it's been identity theft. So yeah, maybe we need to be more aggressive with deleting and flushing those. Yeah, that's the kind of thing where that will get to be a bigger. We will have to deal with this at one point. We're able to not have to deal with it today.
I tried something on my newsletter because I was running into a lot of spam submissions, just general spam submissions, and a lot of them in Cyrillic. But instead of I found reCAPTCHA was actually giving my site a really hard time. It was running into people were submitting and not getting the data through. So I ended up putting just a basic reasoning question on my site it was a radio button. So it's what part of your body do you use headphones with? Eyes, elbow, nose, and ears. And it's really easy now when I go in each week to get stuff for my newsletter. I say, okay, delete everybody who didn't say ears on that, and for whatever reason, because it's a radio button, the spam bots haven't figured out how to answer that question yet. And if the humans are doing it, I guess the Mechanical Turks haven't gotten to my site yet because I don't run paid ads. But I've not seen any, really questionable submissions that way either. I get tons every week, probably 500 or 600 form fills that are all Cyrillic, right? Somebody from one of the Confederation of Independent States, whatever they call themselves, but they're all clearly still 100% bot driven. Like there's no human copying and pasting.
Yeah, well, and see, because that's a great thing. It's if they solve the captcha problem, that just rolls across every site that they come across. But they actually have to have a living, breathing human answer your one specific question because it's not an automation that anyone else is using. So that totally works. What is the churn rate on those? How many you end up flushing them a month?
Every week, I would say I probably add about 100 new humans to my list. And every week, I probably end up flushing about 1,500 spam submissions.
Oh, now see, I even thought it would be inverted. I thought it was just a subset of your, but basically you have 10, you're at over 6,000 a month to mine down. So you're really doing data mining on your own leads.
Exactly, but it's at least it's fast. So, okay, didn't answer ears, delete. But one of the things that I have to figure out now too is if I can conditionally fire a tag manager, because I don't want the spam submissions being flagged as goal conversions. Otherwise, I'm going to screw up my attribution. So my next step is to figure out, okay, how can I alter the thank you page to have my form software basically inject something saying like valid submission. If it passes the captcha, valid submission. And that way I can say, okay, tag manager, only fire the conversion pixel if that slug is in the URL, the thank you URL.
Yeah, and then what's the driving money behind that too? Filling out that many form fills, is it just are they plugging, putting their own URL in the comments box and they're trying to get some page rank out of that, or what else is going on?
Some of that, a lot of it's code injection. A lot of it's someone's trying to inject hostile code
crack
into the site
web
itself.
Okay, that makes so they're basically just trying to steal your whole server, and then they can
exactly
mine Bitcoin or do some or power their botnet, build the botnet bigger.
Exactly. The other thing I've noticed is that so I use Cloudflare in front of my site, and this is we don't have a commercial relationship with Cloudflare. I don't think we do. Maybe we do, but I use the free version on my site, and the amount of garbage traffic it rejects is equally astonishing in terms of just the sheer swamp of crap. So I was in my cloud. I check on my site about once a week just to see what's going on with it and see if there's anything like unusual. And I'm looking here in my security stuff. So I have had rejected approximately 30% of my traffic. Cloudflare intercepts as being crap and saying, okay, this is clearly not good traffic, which is just an astonishing amount of junk. Right,
and so that gets ditched at Cloudflare, so that doesn't even hit WP Engine at all. That doesn't even show up as a touch over there. It's just amazing. I kind of always thought as Cloudflare as being more about caching solution, just like saving you the overhead, but it's become more of a security appliance and a front door filter. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really tricky when you think about it, because if you're a small business that isn't necessarily technically savvy, or even if you're a large business that isn't necessarily technically savvy, and you don't have these multiple layers of defenses to protect your analytics, to protect your data and stuff, there's a good chance that your website is probably not doing what it's supposed to be doing, what you want it to be doing, and possibly have things like security holes and stuff opening up. And so definitely. The key takeaway there is if you don't know what's in your MarTech stack, you should spend some time to audit it. And if you need help with that, let us know. But even more important, know what kinds of threats you're trying to prevent. Because if you don't know that something is a threat, you may be looking at your marketing automation software saying, wow, we had like 3,000 form fills this month. And then sales is like, yeah, but where's all the leads? Like you sent us like 2 leads this month, and because you've got 2,900 pieces of junk in your marketing automation system too.
Yeah, know that it's all garbage. That's just and fortunately for us, it does still hit a human point. At least we don't have some kind of e-commerce solution or whatever where it's doing even other crazy stuff. We finally do have to like actually look at the thing. The ones after you've scraped out all that garbage there, it still touches a human to get into, but. Yeah, it's just amazing how much you have to kind of fight and run with it. I had a similar thing too with one of the podcast sites of getting like 6,000 hits a month. I was having to pay like $150 a month for this traffic, and I still never got to the bottom of it. It was some kind of weird podcasting bot. It was weird that it was hitting the RSS feed, but it wasn't. I just never could get to the bottom of it, and I couldn't block the server. I ended up just pulling the plug on the URL. And it's basically dead for web traffic. I still use it for email, but the web traffic is dead. It'll be interesting. I'll have to fire it back up and see now that it's been dead for a month or two. Has the bot stopped doing it or what's going on with it? But yeah, no, it's just all of these things it's a horrible Pandora's box. You kind of have no idea what's going on. You open it up and then you just start pulling the thread and you keep pulling and it chews up cycles and time. And there's definitely no money at the end of it, but hopefully you can at least stop the bleeding. Yeah,
no kidding. So there's 4 layers of security and that you probably should have in your digital marketing. One is at the DNS level. Service like Cloudflare, Akamai is another well-known company in the space that blocks threats at the network level before they even reach your site itself. So that's layer 1. Layer 2 is your website itself, wherever it's hosted. We use a company called WP Engine, but again, any good hosting company is going to provide you with some basic protection and some other optimizations. Layer 3 is the site software itself. So if you're using WordPress or whatever, use the appropriate security plugins to keep your site safe and clean. Layer 4 after that is using captchas and stuff in the content of the site, using whatever protections you have to offer there. And then technically layer 5 is the human, looking at the marketing automation software, going, you know what, we're getting a lot of garbage here. What's going on? And if you don't have those 5 layers integrated, there's a good chance that you're letting stuff through in one of those layers that you probably don't want in your system. So definitely make sure you have those 5 layers configured. If you're not sure, this is a great time to go down to IT and with a pizza and some beers and say, so what are we doing to protect all of our marketing technology? And if they don't know, or if you're in a company where marketing technology is kind of an end run around IT, then this may be the time
to come out of the shadows.
Exactly. Bring out the beer and pizza and get everybody on the same page, because it's just astonishing. It's May 10th, 2021 as we're recording this, and we're looking at a possible spike of about 30-ish% in gasoline prices because Colonial Pipeline got hacked, and 45% of the gasoline that goes to the eastern coast of the United States is currently sitting in Texas because none of the computers that control the pipeline are working. So cybersecurity, as much as it's not an area of focus for marketers, somebody on your teams or somebody in your company had better at least know what's what in terms of what you've got in place, because by the time something bad happens, you won't be able to close the door once the horse is out of the barn. So you really got to be proactive about security.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Just stay in front of it and schedule your regular reviews. That's the biggest thing. And even if it is just beer with the IT guys, make sure you got something on the calendar, because minimize the damage.
Yeah, and have somebody like you looking at the stuff going, what's going on? And be able to raise their hand and say, like, what's going on? Because there are some companies where the silos and the hierarchy are so rigid that you wouldn't feel comfortable going, guys, something's up.
Yeah, isn't it? That's a whole other thing of, there's plenty of orgs where people are just like, the numbers keep going up. Let's just not touch that or tell anyone. And that's
exactly.
Get ready to visit LinkedIn when that resolves.
If you got questions about anything we've talked about in today's episode, head on over to trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers, where you can chat with over 1,700 other marketers, marketing technologists, and folks about analytics and anything relating to your digital marketing technology. Stop by and leave a comment. And if you're watching this or listening to this wherever, and you wish you could listen to it somewhere else, head on over to trustinsights.ai/TI podcast. You can see all the different options available to you. Probably find the channel that works for you best. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Need help making your marketing platforms, processes, and people work smarter? Visit trustinsights.ai today and learn how we can help you deliver more impact.